Welcome to Mixed Company.
Bringing the siloed and uncomfortable conversation we have with our friends to the forefront so everyone can participate in the conversation.
We say all the things you never would in Mixed Company. Welcome to Mixed Company. And here we are. Back again.
Oh, man, we are here. What up?
It's Mixed Company.
Hey, friends.
Hi, I'm Karinna, and I was almost kidnapped today.
Only Karinna is the grown-ass woman that's
Okay.
getting kidnapped in these streets.
I just don't understand. I just
No
don't
one
get
understands.
Well,
What?
I'm Simeon and that's Kai.
Oh, sorry.
And we're going to ask you about your kidnapping real quick.
No, yeah, I want to talk about it. I just don't feel like that's real, that you got kidnapped. And, like, I don't understand.
I don't feel like I was kidnapped. I just felt like. So on my way here, I decided to take a Lyft line, which was already poor decisions to begin with because I hate Lyft line.
Okay.
But you can't beat that price, though. But anyway.
Sure you can. It's $5 Uber price from 125th down to Lower Manhattan.
Oh,
but go ahead.
Well, I'll keep that in mind. But, so on my way here, there's, I'm the second person to get in the car. And, you think with Lyft line, it's like max 2 people. No.
They got to fill up all the seats in the car.
Oh, my goodness.
You don't do shared rides that often,
No, I do not.
Girl, I can tell you some
So I
stories.
saw a third stop, and I'm like, are you serious right now? So we're driving, and they let the first person off first. And I was like, okay, cool.
They probably got another person.
Then we started a detour, because, I follow, the car to make sure that we're all on track.
And to make sure that they're not trying to take you to, like, some underground disclosed area. Yeah.
And that almost happened today. So anyway, so I see, like, okay, first stop. Next stop, the second guy goes on. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Then I look back at my phone, and it says ride completed. But I'm still in the car.
I need to know where you were.
Where were you sitting?
I was sitting right behind him. Like, I literally could go in his back mirror and say, hello, I'm still in the car. So we stopped. We drop off the second person, and we stop for another minute. And I see him going through his little Lyft phone trying to accept the fee. And I was like, I'm still in the car.
Yo, wait. Are you a middle child by any chance?
No, I'm an only child.
Oh, so you're not even used to
That
this.
actually
You're
would
not
have been a
even
middle
used to
child
this
syndrome.
treatment.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, I must be made out of glass, I must be invisible. So I'm sitting here, sir, I'm still in the car. Why did you complete my ride? We still have places to go. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Where are you going? I'm like, are you serious right now? So literally spelled out the building. He's like, what's the address? What's the cross street? I already know that you don't know any of that. So I'm going to give you the building name. And we do the building name. He's like, okay, let's go. Then we go. Then you would have an attitude because he's like, oh, road closed. And I was like, we're already delayed because you forgot about that there was another person in the car.
Oh, man, Karinna, you got to do
Then-
better. You got to put better vibes into the universe because this ain't right for you.
But this is not the end. So we get to the building.
It should be.
This
And
should
I was
be the
like,
end.
stop at the red car. I want just right in front of the building. I have a lot of stuff. Just stop right in front of the building. And he's like, he accelerates. And I was like, no, like, stop. And I'm just, like, inherently rude. I snapped. And I was like, right there, stop in front of the building. And he was like, oh, you snapped. And I was like,
So?
are you serious right now?
Oh,
Get me out of this car.
He tried to take you home to his home.
We're about to go. I'm like, this
Are
is
you
a very
okay?
long detour.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I mean, I did a terrible review. I don't know. I don't think I'll get my money back, but I don't know if I'm going to do
If
Lyft
it was
line.
Uber, you get your money back for everything on
were
Uber.
you the only person of color in the car?
Yes.
But was the driver...
Yes.
Okay.
He didn't
We
care
were
about you.
damn near the same hue.
He didn't care about
He
you.
didn't...
He did not care.
Well, we're happy you're here and that you made it.
Yeah. Well,
My day was much better than that. So...
compared to that, my day was pretty uneventful.
Oh, shoot.
Well, let's do these things that we normally do and jump into our listener letters. And today we have a letter from Aisha.
Yep.
Am I reading this? Okay. All right, fine.
Go for it, line by line. Take your time. We'll help you where we can.
Okay. And so this letter is from Aisha, and it says, I was listening to your last episode, and it's so funny because our talent and inclusion team had a discussion about the recent shootings on Friday. So for those who didn't listen to the last episode, you should go listen to it because it is pretty good, and it is about all the recent tragic events that have been happening and how we cope at work. And I will continue with this letter. It was a safe haven atmosphere where we educated non-people of color about the effects of race in America and how it translates into our workplace. We also had C-suite executives and also the CEO of one of our companies to sit in on the discussion.
Wow.
It was very eye-opening to them, and of course, but they are coming up with ways to increase diversity, of course. Sorry, that's a typo. And also to hear our thoughts and feelings about the shooting. I was happy to have this dialogue with them, and even more grateful that our CEO of North America encouraged everyone to sit in on the conversation.
Wow.
Shout out to them.
That's
They're
cool.
actually having a conversation.
And you know what? After we recorded, there were quite a few people that actually said like their agencies, their companies, or their teams were like having internal conversations. I also heard that after a few people voiced their opinions about feeling excluded in the conversations, that it was, light bulb kind of went off. Like, damn, you guys are right. We should talk about this the same way we would talk about anything else.
Nice.
Especially, as quiet as it's not kept, like a week later, a week after we released, or the week of our release, was the incident in Nice. And there was no question for many of the organizations and companies that pledged their support to stand and pray with France. So, the conversation is going to keep going forward. I think I feel good about being a part of this conversation. I think especially in advertising, like the people that work within advertising are taking a turn and are becoming more vocal about our personal community issues and bringing them mainstream. So.
I'm proud of it, but I'm still waiting for my company letter. My company has not said anything yet. Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
And people have been nominated for Ad Color, but I'm just putting it out there.
All right.
Well, I don't know what my side eye was about.
I feel like you're just used to side-eyeing me when I speak. Just in case I say something crazy.
Oh, no, because there were like a couple of crazy comments that went through my head, and I was like, I'm going to edit that. I'm going to edit that.
I like that you edit yourself in your head.
And then I said I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
And so,
well, thank you.
And that was our listener letter for the day. Thank you, Aisha. Yeah, that's how you say that. And
I can't.
Because, listen. All right, let's keep it going.
Okay.
So we're gonna jump into the dopest things of the last week or 2 weeks since we're bi-weekly, and I'm going to kick this one off with something dope that one of my homies did, which is the new Dove campaign that is for the Olympics, and it is let me just make sure I get this name right, hashtag My Beauty My Say. And basically what this is a digital campaign that basically looks at all of the commentary that revolves around women in sports. And basically what it does is every single time that there is a comment about a woman's appearance and not her ability, they blur the women out and they make the comment more prominent. Am I explaining that right? You're giving me the side eye.
No,
I'm not explaining it right.
I was just following along.
So basically they launched this in Times Square with the billboard that broadcast like all the sexist comments that the media made about female athletes, and then which they started collecting I think like back in June. So basically, as the comments appear over the images of the women playing sports, the women disappear on the billboard. So it's basically saying, like, when you're talking about a woman's appearance, you are minimizing, I guess, the
There's no I guess. If you talk about a woman's appearance, you minimize her as a person.
Yes. There you go. There you go. Literally, as you started talking, I had flashbacks to our women episode where you screamed at me multiple times.
And you're making strides.
I'm not screaming. I have a loud
voice.
voice.
I've made plenty of strides. I stopped calling women chicks in the office.
Oh, that's nice.
I think it's the small things.
Yeah. No, it is. It is the small things. Okay.
Cool. Who's next? I'm next?
You can do whatever you want to do.
Oh, yay. So my dope thing is, I've been, ever since, I don't know, it's kind of superficial to say this, but ever since in light of the events, I've been looking about Black-owned businesses and, like, anything that I can do to support my community. So what's interesting is it's still vacation time because, it's still hot. But
it's always vacation time.
Yeah, I was about to say summer or not.
Don't ever let that stop you.
Oh, okay.
So Sheila Johnson, who is the wife of Bob Johnson. Is it Bob Johnson? Let me make sure. She, the founder of BET, she has these line of resorts in Florida, and she's making a new one in North Carolina as well. They're called Salamander Resorts and Spa. Oh. And they're supposed to be really nice. So if you want to get away from the city, get away from people at work, look into it. It gets you, go to the spa, relax, and have a good time.
That's so cool. Are they like all-inclusive resort type deals?
They have options.
I doubt that.
I doubt it too. But I've totally been looking for. I was like, dang.
What is it called?
Sometimes I don't want to travel that far. I just want to go somewhere and get the all-inclusive resort experience without having to go to Jamaica.
You said it's salamander, like the lizard.
Salamander, yeah, hotel and resort,
like the Geico.
Mm-hmm. And then there's Salamander. There's Salamander Resort and Spa in Virginia. And then there's
Virginia.
Yes.
Where in Virginia?
It doesn't note out here, but it says Virginia.
Okay.
So look into it.
Look into this and see how much you're talking about.
That sounds dope. Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her. And they've opened already, right?
Mm-hmm. And they're opening one in North Carolina.
Oh, Virginia, Florida, and North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, these rates are real.
Yep. Oh, they are real.
They're real.
How much is it?
Well, I did look at like the best available. Well, they start like $383 if you're a senior citizen, or if you have AAA.
Oh, that's different. Okay. Well, good for her. Good for them. Good for the Johnsons. I'm glad that they are still contributing to Black culture in the United States, and more reason for me to give them more of my money. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
What you got, Kai?
All right, so my dope-ish of the week is, I guess it's like a combination of the tone that you guys are going in. It's definitely a shout-out to some homies. And it's definitely supporting Black-owned artistry within Brooklyn. So for those of you that live in New York City, or you've been paying attention to Vibe.com, or more specifically, you're into art and you live in Brooklyn, some homies of mine have been exhibiting in the OK Player Gallery in Williamsburg. The title of the exhibition is called 5/5, a tunnel vision collective presentation. And essentially, it is a collective of 5 artists that came together to showcase their different performance and visual arts. They had their opening, I guess time doesn't matter on this show because we go every 2 weeks. But from the day I'm speaking, they had their opening last week, and they've lasted 10 days. Their final day is July 30th, I believe. And it's just a really dope experience. I guess I can read this for you guys. So 5 contemporary artists, each spiritual leaders in their own right, have come together to tell the story of 5/5, an audio-visual exhibition that is meant to offer an alternative perspective on the way we see and appreciate Black art and by extension ourselves. So it was just really cool. When I went on Sunday night, I had a chance to see the performance artist Jeminelle perform. Stephen Small Warner, who I go way back to 2000 and what, 9. I was working on Homecoming at Howard. He's taken his visual artistry to a whole nother level. He's a photographer, he's a director, he does screenplays, and just, real cool artsy dudes. So shout out to them. Shout out to JD Malone. Shout out to Dexter Jones. Shout out to Sophia Dawson. And like I mentioned, Jeminelle. It was an amazing experience. And yeah, I can't wait to see the recap footage that comes from Tunnel Vision.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just, you know what it is? It's just really cool to see like a whole bunch of like really aspirational people in a room doing dope things, speaking about dope things, and like, it was a good Sunday. It was a nice Sunday fun day. So shout out to them. # Tunnel Vision.
Awesome.
You got friends.
You got friends. Y'all got friends. We all got friends.
Your friends are cool friends. I mean, my friends are cool.
They're
They're
definitely cooler than me. But yeah, it was a cool experience. So,
Cool.
Yay! That was the dope stuff.
Dope.
So we're gonna jump into today's hot topic, and I guess this is a topic that is hot every year, a couple times a year for different people.
Shoot, it better be hot.
And well, basically,
Keep your job.
basically today's topic is hot topics around performance reviews. So some of us are probably in the middle of performance reviews. I know I am. I don't know. Well, you say you don't do performance reviews. You?
I
No?
definitely am in the middle.
But yeah, so basically every year around this time, or the beginning of the year, or the end of the year, there's this, for some, the dreaded performance review season. And it's basically, if you're in advertising or any job, it's an evaluation of your work performance over the last year or 6 months or 3 months, depending on how diligent your company is about keeping you informed on what you are up to and if you're doing good or if you're doing bad. At some of these places, you do 360 reviews where you have your peers review you, which I tend to like. I think that's it leaves less way for bias, like one-sided bias, right? But also, these reviews determine whether or not, and then for some of you, like, I'm just probably reiterating stuff that you already know, but for others, there are definitely a lot of people out there who do not get reviews, and the reason why, and it's probably the reason why you haven't been promoted in a few years or have gotten a raise. So this is actually good information for some, and probably for others it's just reinforcing what you already know, but keep listening because it gets better. But we also want to talk about biases in reviews, which is like there's data, and there's going to be a website that we're going to post on the link about how Black and women workers receive extra scrutiny from their bosses when it comes to reviews, and it leads to poor performance reviews and lower wages and even job loss, which Kai has a story about, which we'll segue to in a minute. But also, as firms become more likely to implement review systems, minority men and women become less likely to hold management positions, which is a very interesting point that is made in a Fortune article, which we'll also post. We're going to get in the habit of posting the articles that we reference so that you guys...
So it's not just us kind of talking about it, and you guys get your, reading kicks during work or your train ride or your car. Well, hopefully you're not reading in the car, but whatever you do, live your life luxuriously. So we'll post them.
Yeah, and just sidebar, Pocket is a good tool for that if you want to save articles and read in your train ride.
Cool.
And so, and a critical stat for all of this is 58% of the reviews received by men contain critical feedback, but so, I guess I wouldn't say surprisingly, because women in the corporate America, like, we're definitely having these conversations. We have an episode about it. They receive more critical reviews than men. They are harshly reviewed compared to men. And that's basically like our hot topic for the day. We're going to talk about reviews. With some of us, it's top of mind because we are in the middle of being reviewed, and for others, you may not be thinking about it.
I mean, it's good to know. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, whether you are getting reviewed now or ever, like, the whole point of a review is to get an idea of what the perception is of you, and who
Yes.
doesn't want to know what other people think about you, especially when they're the ones signing your check or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Well, me for one, is that even real words?
Me for 3.
I for one, I like reviews because especially in the positions that we are being the few, and especially for me as a copywriter, I don't know a lot of black male copywriters or black female copywriters too, for that matter. And so for me, like it's kind of like a safety. It's a safeguard because if there isn't a review on the calendar, I tend to ask my boss,
Yep.
cool, like you seem to like me, but all right, what am I doing wrong?
Yep.
And if they tell you that you're not doing something wrong, then you should kind of like, I like to press for it because that information is critical to getting better. If your boss is telling you that you're doing everything right, then there's really nothing for you to work toward. And if that's the case, then you should be your boss.
Yeah, I feel like I worked at one of the agencies I worked at. I would beg for a review, and it's not for me. It's not necessarily just like it wasn't necessarily at the time, at least, promotion based. It's more like I need to know that I am fulfilling the duties. Like it's more of like self-validation, right? Like to your point, yeah, what am I doing wrong? Because my fear is that if you're not giving me feedback on things you want me to do better at, you're probably either not paying attention to me, which isn't a good thing, or you don't want me to get better because you're looking to get rid of me, and perhaps that's just poor professional self-esteem, I guess, just about work ethic. But coming from having some, interesting or negative experiences, rather, like in an effort to kind of stay on my toes and to be somewhat in control and be the Virgo I am, to try to make sure I know all the things, like it's important for me to know what you're thinking about me so that I can either fix it or decide it's not worth it.
Or avoid getting reviewed as you're being escorted out the door.
I hate reviews. I mean, I hate them because of my experiences that we talk about later. But for me, I know that they're necessary because I need to know where I need to improve, point blank, period. And the thing is, I've approached it in a way where I think more critically about my reviews, because as a woman, I feel like there are going to be comments that are about my performance and that I can improve upon, but then there are also the same comments that come that is just about my personality.
We can actually get into that later.
Yeah. So, and I've had this mindset of like, are you critiquing my work or are you critiquing me? So that's probably one of the reasons that I hate reviews. And also, I've learned that my managers, they don't know how to give a review.
Yeah, everyone doesn't know how to review. I think that's important. Actually, no, let's go into I think this is kind of switching up what we had on the outline, but like, I think the only time I've ever received a review that was largely personality based instead of performance based was at that hellhole of an agency that I worked at, where like literally a month and a half down the line, I was quote unquote laid off, but no, they fired me. But I mean, I don't know, top down perspective, right? That's what we talk about. Right. I'm looking at you. If you can't say that I'm doing anything wrong with my work, and that everything is that, well, you should, we want you to open up more, or like you said, I don't even remember what was on it, but there was one thing on there where it was like I seemed closed off, and therefore that made it look like I wasn't a team player, even though none of my projects were missing deadlines. As a project manager, like I would feel like, starting out, I would feel like that's something that's important, but it was like you just seem so closed off, and you're hard to work with. But I'm high-fiving people as I walk down the hallway, so I'm not quite sure what you're seeing. To me, like, I'm looking at you like, oh, you just don't like me. Like, that is the best way to document that you don't like me without saying, I really just can't stand this broad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, I mean, I could be wrong. As I've been told, I'm an activist, so maybe I was just taking it to heart.
But you're not wrong about them, because they gave me a similar review. So
but to the point, like, how fair is that? Because if we're looking for data, because reviews are supposed to not just be for promotion's sake, but for professional development. Mm-hmm. As a professional, if the only feedback you have for me is not about my work, but more about like the things that, like, the person I am, like just me, how the person I've grown into, the adult I've grown into, then how fair is that for my professional development? And also, what does that say about you, that there's nothing like that you have not been able to see past what you feel are my personal flaws to actually look at the work that I've produced and the efficiencies that I've created for said agency. You know what I'm saying? So I can imagine, that's the worst way. Nobody wants to hear we hate you every time I have a review.
Yeah, and the way that I think about reviews is, even when I'm meeting a new team or whatever, it's 50-50. Because I've seen people who've been very success being promoted within a group, and they don't know, jack shit about their job. And then there are people who are amazing at their job. They meet the deadlines. They get it done. They get it done efficiently, but they don't gel with the group because there's a personality of, it might be too strong or
strong personality.
But at the same time, it's like it's 50-50.
Yeah.
And I've always, one mentor of mine, she doesn't really know, she's my secret mentor.
Was she giving you advice?
She gave me, she doesn't know she's my mentor. That's why I call her secret mentor.
That's, what are you, Screech from Saved by the Bell?
To that point.
In a relationship, one-sided relationship?
But the thing is, like...
I think we said, wait, just one second, because I think we said that in previous episodes where a lot of you, why are you laughing? But no, because it's a good point. And if nobody heard, I think that was the first episode, a lot of your mentors tend to be your friends. So it's very crucial that you watch who you, oh God, I sound like my parents. Like, you watch who you surround yourself with, because these are the people who give you advice.
Right.
So she may be your secret mentor in your head, but she is actually like your mentor. Yeah. Proceed. Sorry.
But she broke it down to me because she has a strong personality, and she knows that she comes off harshly because she needs to meet deadlines. It is her job to make sure that the entire team meets the deadline and doesn't waste money. But at the same time, she's like, sometimes I do have to be personable because I'm more judged if everyone likes me in the room as opposed to getting the job done.
Right, and I think that speaks to like some of the general odds that minorities face in the workplace when it comes to cultural differences. Because to Kai's point, like when we worked at the same agency, my review was similar, which was, you're not gregarious enough. And I said to her, well, can you expand on that?
Right.
And she's like, well, like when you come in, like we just kind of need you to like bounce around and like stop at people's desks.
I don't understand what their thing was with
bouncing around.
They like people to bounce around.
They like people. I was also told, like, I just kind of like bounce around.
Be peppy.
Yeah,
I
don't do peppy though.
That's crazy.
I had that someone said that to me.
Is this an asylum? Like, am I bouncing off walls? It was an asylum, actually. Let me stop. It absolutely was.
That building is just cursed.
You just drink.
That building is evil. Whatever.
You just drink a venti
But,
coffee. You be bouncing
but
everywhere.
that review was so crazy because she was saying that, and I was like, well, cool. Like, do you have like feedback on my work? Oh my God, we love your work.
Right.
But
we don't like you.
And you know what? But I think that's important to know, because for me, right, starting off in the industry, and perhaps like how you feel right now, Karinna, my expectation was that I was solely going to be judged by my work. And very quickly, you come to find out that it's more than that. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there is a level of relationship building that is important as you matriculate, or not matriculate, as you peruse through just the advertising industry. Wherever you fall into place, you need to, I don't necessarily want to say be friends with everybody, but you should be, people expect for you to be open enough that they feel comfortable spending their hours with you. But that's something only I learned after that review, that like, I can literally be the most efficient, most on budget, most project manager, and still not be considered the best project manager, because people don't feel comfortable around Kai, the person. Forget Kai, the professional.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's a hard lesson to learn, and that could totally be a reason to hate reviews.
Yeah, and I try to, that's when I do, it's weird, but when I know that I'm going to step in and I'm about to go over my review and go over my performance, I have to understand that this is halfway subjective and take it with a grain of salt. Now, the reason I say that is because not everybody gets reviewed, right?
Right.
With that being in mind, because people do not get reviewed often, they don't have a lot of learnings to review someone.
Right. So to that point, and I think what people need to keep in mind when it comes to reviews is that they are not one-sided. Also, when you realize that, and this is something that I had to learn the hard way, that some of your bosses need to be managed, because this is a building, in to Kai's point, like talking about, creating relationships and building alliances. That has been the crutch or the leg up or the stepping stone for some people, and so they may not have ever been critically reviewed, and because they've never been critically reviewed, they can't give you their most unbiased review possible, because they just don't know how. So when you're in these positions where you feel like someone's giving you a biased review and it's very subjective and it's not about the work and it's about you, that's kind of your point where you have to like start giving feedback or asking the right questions that steer the conversation in the way that you want it to go. So if, like, when we're at this godforsaken agency and she's like, well, you're not gregarious enough, and I'm like, well, talk to me about the work. Like,
we need to get a better name for this agency. I'm gonna look up Beelzebub LLC.
Because when we were sitting there, I just remember getting frustrated. I'm like, well, you're telling me that you want me to bounce around, but these are the same people. When I see them in the elevator,
they don't speak,
and I say good morning, like, they don't speak. So I'm not gonna bounce around. I'm here to do a job. But to Kai's point, this is a relationship-based industry. Right. You need to build alliances. It's something that some people learn early and some people learn it later. I think we've learned it later. But you have to steer these conversations in the direction that you want them to go, so that you get the outcome that you want to get out of it. So if they're talking about your personality traits, then you need to start asking critical questions that answer why your personality is in their opinion, affecting the work.
Right.
I actually have a funny story that came from a friend about his experience. Like, just kind of riffing. I guess this far, yet this early into our careers, like, you recognize the importance of your reviews. So we were kind of...
Of your abuse?
Is that what I said? I didn't mean to.
What did you just say?
If I said abuse, I didn't mean it, then that was a Freudian slip, but, like, of your review.
Okay.
So he gave me this story, right? He said, I started working for a team that I absolutely loved. The company needed to shift people to meet demand for the busy season, so I was loaned out until EOQ, so end of quarter. Sorry, just a side note, the idea of being loaned out until end of quarter, it sounds like he's a streetwalker, but he's totally not.
Sounds like before whenever they ended slavery.
Oh, well, whatever. He's not a streetwalker, and he doesn't work on plantations. However, let me continue. So he says, mind you, I was loaned out because my work was quality. So obviously they knew, he's efficient, he's good at his job, we can share him because he'll be able to get through the work. He said the team that he went to just had the manager on that team was just a really, I don't know the nicest way to say this, but like just a really mean lady. We can put it like that, just a mean lady. And to be quite honest, from his experience, he said she was. So he said that there were 4 of us transferred to her. He was the only black, and he was the only male. After the initial orientation to her work, attitude, and personality, there were no real issues. So I'm assuming the first week or couple of weeks or so, he was
chipper.
okay. She was, maybe not chipper, but she was chill. He says she actually started giving me more assignments and had me helping the other transfers with their work. He said once time for evaluation came, he asked his original manager who would be conducting the review, and the manager said, let's let Stephanie do it since you've been with her lately. So, first of all, not years ago, because I remember when this kind of happened, but now... that's not something I would be comfortable with. Somebody that I've only worked with for recent weeks to give me a full review on my
work
portfolio of skills that I've shared versus somebody that knows me very well over the course of, at the very least, a year and a half. That's shady or whatever. But you don't know these things when you come into the industry. You're not looking for red flags. You're looking for more money. So, no, it's real. So he says, it's time for my evaluation. Let's let Anna do it since you've been with her lately. Cool. Or Stephanie, whatever. Cool, not a problem. She's the VP, and such and such is the manager. That's not important. Here's what's important. He goes to the evaluation, and he's getting stunned reading it. So he's basically got a 50% on it. So they qualify this in 4 parts. So like there are 4 different categories to be judged on. Okay. And he got a 2 out of 4. So he's naturally inquisitive, so he asks the right questions that I would not have known to ask at this point in my career.
What kind of questions?
What did he ask?
Well, he said, why is this the first time I'm hearing about any of this? Which is a really fair question to ask. Obviously, the thing about reviews, to your point, Karinna, like, you shouldn't be surprised going into them. You should know when you're messing up.
Yeah.
You should also know when you're doing amazing. Like, and which is why, I guess a lot of agencies do, like, peer reviews and self-reviews, because it's like, you should kind of have an idea of what your work life is like.
Mm-hmm.
He also said, why am I constantly being given more work if my work is not good? Wonderful question. If there was a problem, wouldn't it have made more sense to say something sooner than later so that the work could have been corrected? He also asks, did he ask another question? I'm trying to read this as I go. No, he doesn't have another question. Basically, the conversation goes, she didn't really have much to say. And she just said, let's just use this as a learning opportunity for growth. We can backtrack on that later. Okay. So he said he told them that if he showed, he felt that if he showed this evaluation to anyone who knew him, they would say it was a mistake based on their, like he said, he worked with another team. Everyone felt that his work was up to par. And all of a sudden, he's getting a 50% on his evaluation. That doesn't make sense. So he said he emailed his original boss the next day, and they met to discuss it. And he said 3 days later, over a 3-day weekend, when he got back, he got an email that he had a meeting with the manager, Stephanie Anna, whichever name you want to use.
Okay.
The fake manager. The manager for the end of quarter. Now, here's something which always makes me nervous, but just a heads up to some folks. And maybe this is too negative, so we can crack a joke after to make it a little positive for people. If you ever get a status meeting on your calendar at random, out of nowhere, and it's first thing in the morning or the last thing you do before you leave, and you walk in the room and you see an HR person, just know this conversation is not going to be one of your better conversations.
It's going to be one of your last
It's probably going to be one of your last conversations. Shade, no shade. So he said that he's thinking that they're going to discuss the evaluation because the evaluation doesn't seem right. Nope, that's not what happened. He said the conversation went, "Hi, based off the evaluation, we decided that we're going to have to let you go. I'll escort you to get your things." That sucks. That's a really shitty place to be in when you're starting a career and you're trusting in process that, because that's the process that you're taught, that people have taught you over the course of, orientation. That's how they say things go down. You're encouraged to be inquisitive and demand feedback. But that's exactly what happens. Like, it literally is often left into the hands of a handful of people. They don't always have to know you at your best. Sometimes they don't care. Sometimes your best advocates will help you on your reviews. But it's literally just the perception that they have and the numbers or paperwork that they fill out on your behalf to share with whomever the higher-ups are. I mean, it's a shitty situation.
I mean,
for the record, he's still employed somewhere else.
At a better place.
At a place.
Better than that one, though.
It's better than that one because he's been there, and they have a union, which is a whole other thing that I don't know about. Don't ask me because I don't know about that lifestyle. It's not advertising.
This is the underground
I've actually been a part of a union before.
So it's a different lifestyle. But yes.
It is definitely a different lifestyle. But it also sounds like he didn't have 360 reviews.
Nope.
Because that is where that is the difference, because that would have been the difference in that situation, because that person
they would have had to compare it.
Right. They would have had to compare her review with at least 2 to 3 other people's reviews.
I don't necessarily agree with 360 reviews.
I do.
Tell me more.
I do.
I agree.
But so let me say why.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. Yeah. The reason why I agree with 360 reviews, and it all depends on the agency and the company, but you may not work with your boss on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
I sometimes don't speak to my boss for a good week. Like a detailed conversation, like status updates. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm working on. He may know what I'm working on, but he may not know the day-to-day. It may just be like in passing. I see you in the elevator, like, hey, how'd that meeting go? Meeting went great. Thumbs up. Hey, guy, see you later. Like, that could be the extent of our interaction, like on a weekly basis. Like, there was a moment. There were a couple of weeks where I don't think like he and I had a conversation for like a detailed conversation about work for like a while. So the thing about 360 reviews is it gives him context to what you're actually doing. So if they're not working with you on a day-to-day basis, then now he has context. Like, it's one thing for him to be like, well, all right, cool, like you sold that through, but then the context is, well, account saying this was a shit show and he helped it not be a shit show. Like, so that's why I agree with 360 reviews, because it can hurt you and it can save you. But usually with 360 reviews, like, you're actually picking the people that your boss will consider when they're actually writing their review. So it's not random.
Yeah. I mean, not every place has 360 reviews.
Right.
So you have to make the best of the situation. One thing about 360 reviews is I have to see how it's organized, and I have to know what if people are actually doing the review. Because what happens with peer reviews and 360 reviews, the reviews have to be mandatory, right? They have to be in a place where you have someone that's going to advocate for you, that is going to be your ally, and then that can see you through your work.
Wait, what?
So in a 360 review, you would want. I never had a 360 review, but if I had one, I would want someone who's going to advocate for me, a person who's actually seen my work,
Right.
and a person who's an ally for me.
Well, that's why you would pick that person.
Right.
So usually, it's the way that it works is review season starts. You go. That's crazy. Well, I've actually been reviewed twice this year, two different companies. So you'd basically say, well, hey, these are the people who I've worked closely with over the last year on certain projects. I want them to do my peer review. You submit them to your boss can go, nah, you kidding, you didn't work with this person. Or they can say, well, yeah, you actually worked in this project with this person, so I actually want to hear what they have to say. So you're picking these people. Now, you can definitely pick somebody who's going to give you a bad review, but that's up to your discretion, like, you know, because you know your interactions with somebody.
The new review system that I've been through is more peer-to-peer. So you have to make sure you do check-ins, whether that's your direct person or direct as in your day-to-day direct boss or your supervisor, depending on your team.
So are you getting reviewed at this company that you're at right now?
So what they do is they do peer-to-peer reviews. My whole thing about the 360 reviews that makes me iffy is that when you choose people, maybe it's me being crazy, that they will trust that they will give me a fair review and that my boss will see it as a fair review, not just me, not my friend just talking about how great I am.
But
That's the whole point of the process, though. So what you're saying is that you're not trusting in the process, but essentially, who's to say that your boss is going to give you the most fair review? Like, you never know. Clearly, you haven't received the most fair review you think you could have received. The point is to have checks and balances. So it's not only about who's going to say the nicest things about you. It's about people giving their experiences that they've had with working with you.
But also, when you say peer-to-peer review, what's the difference between that and the 360?
So for peer-to-peer reviews, you do these check-ins, and then at the time where you're supposed to submit the paperwork, it's when you should know. It's to build up transparency that you know what you're being reviewed on, and you know nothing should be a surprise because you've had these check-ins to always consistently improve on your performance.
With your peers.
Yes. And on top of that, it's supposed to eliminate situations where you have a passive-aggressive boss and you don't know what you did wrong until the day of your review. The checkpoints are supposed to eliminate that because there are conflicts that should be remediated in real time.
But also, I feel like something that I kind of hear you saying is that your worry or your fear is that you'll be getting a quote-unquote bad review.
Yeah, because I haven't...
But you can get a bad review from anybody.
But I think but what is that? If the point of a review is to find out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, the only time it's really a bad review is if you're being judged unfairly. If someone's saying that you're actually doing something wrong and it's legit and you don't know that you're doing something wrong, then technically it's a good review if they're giving you the opportunity to correct that.
And the last review that I would consider bad, the what I got critiqued on was my personality. And that was like, I can't improve on my personality.
They say?
It was about tone of voice, right? And the only reason I didn't say anything,
right? I don't know. Like, are you a case study?
Are you copying?
I was like, what does that mean? Well, sometimes in a meeting you can come off as harsh, and I was like,
you?
Now, if anyone knows
they
me,
think you're harsh, child. I would never be able to work there.
So,
if you are the gauge for all things harsh, wretched, and completely over the top, me, and these big red braids, they wouldn't work. Look, they missing out on all this efficiency. Look at them.
So the thing is, though, I did a test. So I did it. I watched my tone, quote unquote. Didn't say I was soft, nice, whatever, for a good week. And then they were like, no, we need you to be more aggressive, and you need to be more aggressive with these people. And it's like, you don't even know what you're asking for.
Right.
I actually heard other women say that same critique before.
It's like, you didn't like me today when I was being aggressive about meeting a project. So now I'm not being aggressive, and you want me to be
gotten
aggressive.
feedback like that. I mean, that's real. Okay. All right. Yes, we get it.
Yeah.
You're not comfortable with the reviews.
So like what I think that's you're not uncomfortable. I think, but it also opens up discussion for. All right, so what exactly do you do when you, because that doesn't really sound helpful.
No.
And so like I think we need to ask ourselves, what do we do when we have an unhelpful review that's focused on personal things versus work performance? And we were talking about this earlier with hell that we worked in. Like, it's knowing that these reviews are not one-sided. Like, this is not you, like, talking to your parents and them telling you, shut your face. Like, it's not your turn to talk. Like, we're all adults in a room sitting there, like, having a conversation about what you feel like I did right or I did wrong. And so you're there to actually respond to this person who's telling you you did something wrong. Like, it's up to you in that moment to be like, but no, I feel like this is exactly what happened, or this is how you should have solved the situation, or this is exactly, or this is the way that it went down, and you still may be wrong.
Right.
But you should always walk out of a review saying, this was helpful.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I agree.
And helpful, whether or not, like, you're basically saying, like, cool, this is something I need to improve on, or helpful, like,
it's helpful because it gives you insight. Like, it should be helpful because it should give you more insight and not leave you further in the dark.
And the insight may be that you need to leave.
And honestly, like, when you first asked the question, like, in my head, I'm like, you just start looking for another job. But the reality is, no, that doesn't have to be the knee-jerk reaction, right?
No.
Somebody gives you feedback, they're saying you're acting like a complete asshole. You probably have to ask, like, you probably need to take a step back and ask yourself, A, am I being said asshole? Then I think it might be helpful to actually ask for examples.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, I think we forget because we feel like we're in a place of judgment and superiority and inferiority and boss and employee and all of that BS. But you need to find examples.
Right.
Because if there are no real examples, especially that point to work, then you know it's not just you. And to Simeon's point, if it's not just you, then it's probably not best that you're probably not going to be there for the long term. So perhaps now we start to think of different, an exit strategy. Yeah, if you do get examples, like, I think it's worth being. It's like taking a step back and being like, you know what? maybe I do have a shitty personality. Maybe I could be a little bit less of a jerk off on the phone calls with the client. Maybe I could go for saying good morning at least once a week. You know what I'm saying? Personality comments are not necessarily the worst thing. Mm-hmm. Personality comments that don't come from a place of we want you to do better and we want you to win mean that we want you to leave.
Right.
And I think it's learning how to understand the difference. How do you do that? I don't know. I like to say trust your gut, but everybody don't feel like they have that insight. Just kind of follow, you got to just follow the breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Are you feeling welcomed in general? Are people trying to help you? The person that's reviewing you, what stake do they have in your career? Do they feel fully invested in you? Right. Or do you feel like you've been out here on a ledge trying to make it by yourself and all of a sudden they throw on all of this, crazy dust up on you and you need to figure out how to dust your shoulders off, you know what I'm saying? It really just depends, but you do have to be careful. Because there is something to be said for receiving, you got to learn how to take criticism.
Right.
Constructive criticism may shade your personality. Because there's some really...
shady people.
And it's not that you're not good people. I always go into reviews feeling like I'm going to, when I do get reviewed, I'm going to get, those kinds of feedback, and I don't. But, that's because I know that you could be a little nicer.
Right. But you also,
could probably be nicer today. Just today.
And one thing that I, my main question, and this is a question that I ask in every review, it's... Because I've had reviews where they're just like, oh my God, you're awesome. You're this those. And you're that. And then you have to look at them and go,
I know I'm not awesome.
I am not that awesome. I'm going to need you to tell me something that I'm doing wrong.
Or something I can be better at. It doesn't have to be wrong.
Yeah. You need to tell me where there's room for improvement. But the other shit is, my analogy for employment period is that this is a relationship and you should treat it like you treat your other relationships, and you should walk out of that room with a clear understanding that this company or your boss has your best interests in mind.
Yes.
Because you know when it just ain't working.
Yeah. You can sense it.
And you can sense it. And so the review season is also a point where if you are feeling like something is wrong, to bring it up. Where it's not just one side, where you can have an amazing review, but at the same time, you just feel like, yo, you're just
for you,
you're just not that into me.
Or it's not right, and it doesn't necessarily have to not just be for positive spin, right? You don't want to be all negative, but there is a level of pro-activism that is necessary in having a profession, or just being a successful professional, whether that's through entrepreneurship or whatever, where you also have to, you need to want to be reviewed. You need to also want to perfect your craft. You also want to learn new skills. Because if people are constantly just telling you how amazing you are, and you do all this perfect work, and you're just so cool, and we love you, then you're not growing.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, the goal is to grow as a professional. Whether you grow with that company or not, you still have your life to live, and you still have goals you want to achieve, or you need to achieve. And no matter how messed up your job situation might be at that time, everything that you've gone through, negative and positive, you pack that up, you put it in your Barney bag, you take it with you to the next place. But it's only helpful.
Yes, from Barney bag.
Or your JetSport.
It's only helpful if you can say that you've learned something. So all of it you need to learn. So that's yes, absolutely. Go into it. Look, these are the things that I feel I need to work on. What do you think about that? Right. These are the things that I've noticed. Hey, this has been my experience working with such and such person. I need to know, is that a personality thing, or is this a work ethic thing? Or am I reading too deeply into it? This is the opportunity to have the intense conversations. Now, let me just go ahead and give this disclaimer, because I need to start giving disclaimers when I say things to people. It may not go right. The conversation may not go the way you want it to. Like, this is not all roses. Sometimes it's guns. But it is important. And I think that's a part of being a professional. Like, your best intention is not always going to take you where you want it to go, but oftentimes it will. And just be prepared.
This is also one of those situations where you need to be aware of the quote-unquote millennial privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what
got privilege?
I mean, or expectations of like what you should be getting out of a job, and what they should be giving you, or what you should be expecting, or whatever. So when you're going into those conversations, and that's why I thought it was interesting when you keep saying getting a bad review, like, we need to define like what a bad review is, because if a bad review is just you getting critical feedback that isn't favorable,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
then to me that's not a bad review. That's just like, I'm walking out of here like, all right, cool, this is what I need to work on. Because if the gut reaction is to, all right, I got a bad review, so it's time to quit, then whatever you're bad at, you're just going to be bad at the next place with the same thing.
The way that, the way that I grade or rate a bad review, if it is something that I cannot improve on, and the way that I gauge that is having examples.
What do you mean you can't improve on it?
Like, if it's a personality, let's say it is my personality.
But you can change personality aspects.
But having those examples can bring back memories in your mind of, okay, when you take a step back and you say, well, I could have handled that situation differently, you have an example. It's different than saying, oh, I just wish you to be peppy all the time, or I want you to be more invested.
Here's what's missing. Because it's easy to be I'm not saying you're defensive, caveat that. But it's easy to get defensive when people start talking about things that you do naturally. I think a better way to look at it is this helpful?
Right.
Is this helpful doesn't mean I can change it or I can't change it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the gauge. Like, because some things you just don't, frankly, want to change about yourself. So if you feel like you're not, I don't personally, from working with you on this podcast, I don't think that you're harsh about anything. Quite frankly, I feel like I need to take 10 steps back, because I don't want to be that harsh to you, because I can take it there, right? I think it's important to know that the whole point of your review is to learn and to grow. Am I learning from this? Is this going to help me grow? Can I take this information to my next job or to another career where this is transferable information that's going to help me be even better elsewhere? If you can't do any of those things with that information, to me, that's a bad review. Somebody's saying that, you know what, you just have a really stuck up personality. That might be really good insight to know. Because that means that, you know what, maybe I'm giving off the wrong vibe. Now, to your point, if you like, well, I can't think of a moment when I was that way. If you can't get an example, then maybe they're just, drawing conclusions.
Right.
Yeah.
But it does have to be helpful, and it does have to be something that's transferable after you leave that place of work.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, like, and to that point, I do feel like I'm a little bit more peppy since we left hell.
I told you, you're the most popular person I know.
But also, that review, that last review in hell was, it ended with me asking, well, like, why don't you give me, like, specific, like, examples of me not being gregarious enough? And they really could, and she really couldn't. But she ended that review with these choice words that I'll never ever forget, which is, well, maybe this isn't the place for you. And I was like, well, maybe it isn't. Because that to me, like, and to the point, like we were saying before, like, deciding on whether or not it's time to like leave or go, like she basically made the decision for me. Like, this isn't the place for me because you're expecting something that I wouldn't say is unreasonable, but it isn't fair because everybody isn't being judged on the same criteria, you know? Because, like I said before, whereas I walk into an elevator, I'm like, hey, good morning, guys, and everybody acts like they were raised by wolves and they can't, like, respond to a greeting. Like, everyone isn't being judged on the same. So it wasn't for me. And you use the review as your own temperature gauge to be like, all right, cool, deuces. Yeah, so now that we have been here for X amount of minutes.
It hasn't been that long.
Yeah,
we
it
just
hasn't.
know that you don't
We've had
prefer.
longer.
You don't prefer to be in the AC. We know.
What is it? No, but I feel like we've definitely like hit on a lot of.
I think a good question is what do you do if you don't get formal reviews at your job? Because I think we haven't discussed that.